Courtney Facebook page, and everyone else who just joined us. Welcome to the 1803 Afternoon Drive Friday edition. That is, and they have the two gentlemen now. They always look younger by day.
We are.
Nice company.
Yeah, younger by day.
Thank you.
I can see people like Sane coming coming live. Thank you for joining us. And everyone else who's coming through. Yeah, a lot of people are coming.
Life is good.
Life is good, isn't it?
Life is good.
Yeah, we're here. We're talking about the thicket of people of African descent. And we had Bob Marley as the first song, redemption song. I was hoping for Exodus. But the reverse one this time.
Right.
Yeah. I can see someone say, "Hey, Daddy." Obviously, you had a daddy's time.
Yeah.
give a shout out to Sadie. Come on.
Oh, hey, Sine.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Sadie, you got a shout out from your father.
Yeah.
That's good. Anyway, we're here. Sadie, you are lucky to have a shout out on radio with your father direct. That's nice. We're here now. We're talking about this. It's been 3 months? 2 months?
2 months now. Yeah.
2 months now. How you feel about it?
Well, I'm feeling really good about it. As we celebrated MLK, Dr. Martin Luther King Day, early, what is it, on the 15th, early in the week, I forget the date. Monday. But it reminded me some of the things that I saw, heard, that he was doing. It reminded me of the challenge that we still face.
Okay.
He gave his life trying to bring about a change, not just for people of African descent, but for people globally, And for me, it's significant from the standpoint that at the end of the day, the decade should be able to move us closer to being able to live as one race, and that's the human race.
Okay.
That's my endeavor.
Okay, I was listening to the speech. In fact, I played that speech on my show, and I've been on a mountaintop.
Yes.
And it immediately after listening to that, I remembered one of your speech to you gentlemen and saying, you may not be there when this thing happened.
Yeah.
But at least you laid the foundation. So Martin said the same thing. He said, I may not be there, but I've been at the mountaintop.
Yeah. But the vision, can you imagine, spiritually, and from listening to him, I think that he had a revelation when he said he's been to the mountaintop, he's been allowed to look over. I just wonder so much, what did you see, Martin? To the point that you are willing to give your life, for such a cause. So for me, it's an affirmation, Brother Priester, that we're at least on the right track with this initiative.
Yeah. And still speaking about Martin Luther King, because I even did a show Monday about the dream and what is the status between the dream and President Trump and what's going on now. Because so many people outside of America believe that the African Americans who the civil rights whole thing was about have achieved their dream. And my thing was like, no, the dream has been deferred.
Yeah, because I when you were talking a little part of me saying, who's Trump, by the way?
Right.
Yeah, because I did say it after the speech came up and say it's time that a lot of African people will be like, don't pay attention to him. Like he doesn't speak for all of us. He doesn't speak for the whole United States.
Right.
So him taking the dream back, I think the people understand what it's all about.
I hope so. I hope so. And then that they don't take it personally and allow that to backtrack them. Because that's what we're talking about. All we want to do is educate people. We wanted to use this United Nations initiative to further educate people and wake them up to it's all about them. It's not about the slavery anymore. It's not about the colonists anymore. It's about you improving yourself, lifting yourself up together with others, because it can't be just us doing it for you. You have to do it for yourself. So that's what our weekly show is basically, to me, that's what it's basically about.
Okay.
You know, I think through our last 2 months, even with you, you learned some things.
a lot. Even though I've been more absent than present, but I've learned a lot.
And see, as your culture, as a African, exposing you to all of the other parts of the world and what's going on, and how you can actually help uplift those other people. I think that's very important. Yeah,
because really. When you look at the attributes that we are trying to diminish, eliminate being disrespected, eliminate being undervalued, eliminate being underestimated.
Of course.
So, and these are all characteristics that you can pin to people of African descent. But regardless of, is it descendancy? Regardless of where you come from, I think it's innate for us to have respect for each other, to value each other, and and not to take another culture for granted. And that's what has happened historically to people of African descent. And this initiative is just about trying to bring that to light, give recognition to the fact that we still have some things to change, and knowing that we have not arrived, and to be able to make a difference.
Okay, so we're talking about making sure that even if the world may allow us, may not allow it at some point, but we ourselves, we need to try and fight tribalism amongst ourselves, xenophobia amongst ourselves, try to fight the light skin, black skin, south, west, north, east, all those divisions that we have as people needs to go down. We need to take down the walls, or your German West, South, whatever it is. Within ourselves. I think that's one of the things that, and now that we're drawing lessons from Martin, do you think he was going to be happy with the level of a black man in America at this stage?
No, he wasn't happy. No, I don't think so. I think because even his outlook was changing toward the end of his life. I believe that's why he would meet with Malcolm and others, because his own personal outlook on what was going on was changing. So no, I'm pretty sure he would think that all that work I did, and this is as far as we got.
And really, in my profession, my business profession, my consultancy is in quality. And there's a concept that talks about continuous improvement.
Yeah.
The minute you become satisfied with your state, you don't have a driver anymore. So when we look at this, and I keep bringing it back because sometimes it's misconstrued, this is about people of African descent, but it's not just for people of African descent.
Okay.
And if I want to draw the parallel between, let me call it EA, Europe and Africa. Let's make those be the two cultures that we are focusing on primarily to try to make some things happen, primarily because of the controversy that has existed over the years in relation to what has happened to Africa as a country, having its people taken away, still going on today when you look at what's going on in certain parts of the world. But the whole idea is to try to create a world, how did Martin say it? That our children, our descendants will not be judged by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. Ultimate, and that applies no matter the race.
If you look at it now, yes, what was it on Tuesday? There was a clash between the EFF and some parents about the school that is strictly in Afrikaans, and they are saying, open the gates. You can't shut us down at this moment. If we still fight of such little things like a language, are we there yet? No.
But I can go, but I can go smaller. I say smaller, maybe it's not smaller than that when you talk about what happened with, was it Cape Town or here in Santa with H&M?
Oh yeah, well, those ones.
And I don't know whether that is less or more.
Well, that's more because it's international.
Yeah, I'm talking about in terms of being derogatory, if you follow what I'm saying.
But it was taken internationally.
Yeah,
I'm saying they got stores all over, so people everywhere were making that same complaint, even though they didn't get violent like these guys did.
Because even the kid is not a South African. It is a UK.
He's in Sweden. He's in Sweden. Right. His mother's Kenyan in Sweden.
I'm not.
Well,
I'm not.
The mother it's a different issue. We'll talk about her the other day. But the mother has sold us out. But it's cool.
Yeah, you saw that too, right? I did. She did sell it right.
But no, hold on, don't go there quite.
Right.
Because she could have had a genuine feeling that it ain't no big deal.
She did. Well, that's what she said.
Well, that's what she said. And the point that I'm trying to make, it's kind of like whiteness. It's kind of like whiteness when you don't know, as a white person, when you don't know and can't see that you have certain privileges when it comes to other cultures, then there's some enlightenment needs to take place. And what she did was look at it from being personal with her son, saying it's not a big deal. But the veil that was thrown over people of African descent, that's where the turmoil comes from. And I agree with that side, even though I can understand her position.
Yeah, because for me, when even if she understand it the way she did, my point is Steve Bigel's message was that the strongest weapon the oppressor have is the mind of the oppressed. So if the mind of the oppressed think there's nothing wrong about being oppressed, we have a problem.
We have a problem.
A big one.
No doubt.
So things like that. That's why when the Dove issue came out late last year, I said, how can this woman who looks over 21 participate in an ad that degrade black people?
Oh, when she compared the dog to who's cutest to the
So,
but no, and I mean, it's been an interesting last week or so, because Courtney's president,
who's that?
Courtney's president, Donald Trump.
Oh, Mr. Something shit, what?
Yeah.
Okay.
And see, some people now, as I sit, by being, and from the U.S., African American, I'm quick to keep my mouth shut, but I listen to some of the dialogue that take place, and there was some saying that, but why come down on the man for describing us as we are? On the other side, there were people who were saying, no, he should have never said that, But the fact is that when you look at, I'm trying to think of the guy's name in Nigeria, and he was saying, okay, people of African descent, let's just fess up. Let's just fess up.
Nigeria is a shithole country. That's what he said. He said, what I mean? He said, I'm paying for power and I don't have power. Nigeria is a shithole country. He said, you know what I mean?
But not that. Now, hold on, Cody. Not that I agree that Nigeria is a shithole, but the fact.
No, this guy said it. It's not us. Okay, all right.
It wasn't me.
Right, it wasn't me. You can go on Facebook and find it.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me. Yeah. But my point is that there are opportunities for improvement. I think it was an insult. I think it was inconsiderate for him to phrase things that way. But now, how can you not expect something like that from him when he talks about grabbing?
Well, I wouldn't. It's nothing that please. Let's talk about people. They leave Trump and the Trumpettes out of this.
But it's been an interesting week.
Because it is. It's huge and interesting. That's for sure. And so degrading and it's just disturbing, because you would expect someone in that position to be a little bit more considerate and think before they open their mouth. And that's the last thing I can say about it.
Well, these days, these leaders are tweeting and thinking after. They tweet first and then later.
Right.
Yeah, that's what they do, and all of them.
And I think he might have a degree of amnesia, because the very next day he went online to say that he didn't say that. So maybe he's not.
But yeah,
aware.
because wasn't nobody supposed to tell? They were in a private meeting.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I don't care what he said.
Right.
I don't-
Thank you.
I
Let's
don't-
get away from that.
I
Let's
don't
get
care.
back to
Yeah.
to talking about recognition, justice, and development for people of African descent.
Yeah.
And I have something to speak to that, because one of the things that I hear happening a lot is that the initiative is misunderstood.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and when I say it's misunderstood, one of the hurdles that we had to get across is that the initiative is not just for people in the diaspora.
Okay.
You know, because a lot of time when you say people of African descent, we want to exclude the continent. But how can it not be about the continent when that's where the majority of people of African descent live?
Mhm.
You know, in relation to the definition. That's where the origin of a lot of our problems and our challenges come from. But I have come to believe that when we talk about education and recognition, we are overlooking perhaps the most important group, and that is the European, to help them better understand. Let me call it their externalities. Let me explain externality.
Mm.
Externality involves you doing something that is adversely affecting me, and you didn't intend for it to, nor you are aware of it.
Mm.
You know, so I think that the European or the white race are caught up in that externality way up, to the point that there are some who genuinely don't understand. You know, when you talk about privileges, we ended our meeting last week talking about, well, why can't you just get over it?
Mm.
You know,
As if it's a rope across the road. You just
yeah. But see, now the problem, Gamani, is understanding what it is.
Mhm.
Mm.
You know, because they want to put slavery in one little can and put the jar on it, but the residual effect of colonialization, you know, the residual effects of having been enslaved, you know, is not entertained and examined to the point that they can then see, yeah, you know, we might have, you know, we might be wrong about this it.
Mhm.
It is not something that you can get over just like that. It's something that you have to work on, and that's what the initiative is all about.
Isn't that statement saying exactly where South Africa is today?
Hmm.
Right? It
Yeah.
was the separation of cultures, the Bantu education system,
Yeah.
you know, the total apartheid regime.
The homelands.
Right. So it's been 26, 27 years since South Africa itself supposedly became free. So in that time, those that were born into that system, lack of education, lack of self-confidence, self-esteem, you know, now they're in their 40s and 50s, maybe, and 60s. So that effect is still going on. And when they raise their children, what environment or what mental state did they raise their children? Or how did they raise their children to think, to appreciate themselves, to think that they can conquer and do anything that they feel they can do? Did they raise their children like that? So now it's generationally, just like with slavery, it's generationally. So now we're going to have to make the correction constantly and teach those that's sleeping that the change happened when you were there, but now we need to include everybody in this change.
Yeah, because I had a conversation with a lot of gentlemen about this thing, and all of them are saying, but it's been years. I'm like, I have an idea that being force removed and grow up in a place where you are not supposed to grow up has an effect of where you are today. They're like, yeah, what happened to God's will? Oh, okay.
Right.
So I can take a gun and shoot you and say God's will.
God's will.
Yeah. And then, you know, really.
So when they saying God's will, is that in acceptance, or are they saying that
it was inevitable?
Yeah, it was like it was just Moses clashing against other tribes on his way to Canaan. That's it.
Well, none of us know God's plan or God's will. So
but you know, really, and I keep coming back because I think we might be educating the wrong, attempt to educate the wrong group. Because I don't think, and let me use European rather than white, because there are some cultures that are non-European that also identify with being white. However, they take that belief from wanting to be like the whites. I'm going to say the Europeans. So when you talk about the Europeans having an in-depth understanding of having been enslaved, there is some fear in their minds. I think that because, the interviews with police, I think it was in New York, where it was just brought out, white officers are just afraid of black men. Kind of like the larger you are, the darker you, the larger you are, the darker you are, the more trouble you're in. So what I'm saying, So what
might be true.
Yeah. Nah. Yeah. But so I'm thinking, taking the time to, when we say decolonize our curriculum, put some mandatory requirements in there for the European or the white kids, such that they'll be able to see, study, better understand exactly what has taken place, with the thinking or the objective being that now that you are enlightened, you are woke, it's incumbent upon you to do something in relation to what's going on with the plight of people of African descent, because where you are, to a large degree, sidebar here, when I'm walking in the morning and I see the person of African descent out walking the dog, walking somewhere else, it's just so saddening. Or the mother who's had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to come to the neighborhood to take care of the European or white kid. I'm wondering, but what's happening to your children? So what happens there is that they really, because some of them see it as providing an opportunity for their housekeeper. Because if I didn't give them a job
to walk a dog,
yeah, because now you have a few rands. I am just saying that this whole thing about decolonization and education might need to start with the European or the white child, in addition to the black child. As Courtney said, a lot of our ego, has just been taken away, our manhood, because I've always said, if I had grown up in slavery, I wouldn't have made it.
That's me and apartheid. I always say that. Maybe I should have been hanged long time. I could have been hanged long time ago, because even today, I always say this. I'm very not racist, but I'm realistic. So people think that opposite of being racist, it's only being non-racist. Sometimes just you need to be realistic about it, to say this thing exists and we need to deal with that. And when it comes to teaching all the races, I agree, because once you teach a black man to stand up, he might want to make the white man sit down. That will be not an easy transaction. If you say, black man, you need to stand your ground. In other words, whoever is standing against you need to sit down. So it's a matter of saying, people, let's coexist. Let's live knowing that we are equals. But
one-on-one, I have faith in mankind, or the human race, that once truly enlightened, you can't pretend to be ignorant anymore. And there are a lot of white people who honestly believe that they pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. And why can't we do the same thing? In the States, there are all kinds of funds, all kind of aid given to the white European immigrant coming to America. But when we came as property and as slaves, and whatever was made during that time, we couldn't own, even if it was an invention, because we belonged to somebody else.
So a black man never went to America; he was taken to. So
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be a trip, isn't it?
Yeah. And when you look at some of the slave ships that they went over on, oh man,
I have to agree with both of you guys on that, and maybe change inclusion, not really changing our focus, but inclusion of a program to enlighten some of the Europeans would be also helpful in our campaign. Folks that know me know that Fred's gonna have to do that because I.
Well, but now it's something that I've been thinking about for some time, Gamani, and I say this because one of the initiatives that I'm trying to make a part of our effort is a strategy called character education.
Okay.
Character education takes character and treats it like a subject, math, whatever. And you break it down, and this would be good for both cultures, European or African. So let's just talk about integrity. Let's just talk about honesty.
Humanity.
Yeah, let's talk about those things when you talk about character, because the character is left to chance, so to speak. We are hoping that as you grow up, you will develop a good character, such that you won't be like a lot of the people we see in leadership positions today. Because for me, character education would go a long way when you start talking about public officials.
Yeah, because in South Africa, we have what they call life orientation. But I don't know how depth is that. But that one thing has to do with things that you need to know out of the class beside being taught mathematics, X is equals to what. It's more about letting you know that there is these things out of the world, and it's more of your survival skills. But it's not enough. It's never sufficient. Because I don't think they go down to say, hey, black child, grow your ego. White child, hey, limit your ego. There will never be that moment where all that has been included in this course. But going forward,
but see,
who should do the teaching?
All of us. And I'm saying, if you want to kind of, let's say, tier it in, it should start at home. And one of the first topic attributes that we should touch on would be respect. You respect a person, or you respect another person, not because of the color of their skin, but just to generally be respectful. And when you start talking about fairness, I'm talking about attributes, behavior patterns that perhaps if the Europeans understood better, we wouldn't have the problems that we have here now.
Yeah.
I mean, even to the point of bullying.
Well, hold on there, because I agree with the education and the concepts that we talked about, but historically, it's not the uneducated Caucasian or European that's the source of the problems. The problem is the educated, those that are trying to make money. That's basically it's a business concept throughout.
Yeah,
I don't think none of it has been personal throughout history. It's all been about business.
It's more commission.
Right. So, and it's about commerce, capital, cheddar,
dominance.
No, right.
Dominance. Sure, to dominate.
Right. It's been about the first Roman Empire, then the British Empire, and so forth and so on down that. You know what I mean? So
the so-called Great America.
Yeah, right. Making America great again
by kicking out.
Right. By kicking out the same people that helped build, or that's supporting the system as it is now. Because again, now it's only one group from America. That's the Native American. Everybody else is immigrants.
Yeah.
Right.
Or refugees.
Refugees, yeah.
Putting that term on people.
Right.
It's 20 minutes before out of 5 here on 1803 of Farm. We're still on it. If you just join us through Mr. Goodness Facebook page, welcome to it. I have a lot of names, and unfortunately, some of your names will need me to take time to read them. But Eddie, you there, Don, you there. Rosisha, thank you guys for joining us. I won't read some of the names, just out of respect, of course. Yeah, we're talking about the decade of people of African descent, we say, now it's time that we teach everyone. It's time that we open up the borders and soften the laws and treat each other with dignity and respect across the board. It's time for everyone to say there is one race, that's human race. Martin Luther King's birthday this week, and the message was clear: equality. That's all we want. The opportunities may never be granted to everyone because that takes time, but equality and fairness towards those opportunities will help everyone else. That's what we call for, and if that can be done, then let those who are smart enough wins. But let not be laws or anything that binds everyone to do their best. Let everyone be allowed to have justice, freedom, education, and everything else that comes with being a human and existing.
Right. That's it.
That's it. Amen.
Amen. Are you going to break?
Yeah, we need to go in a short interlude. When we come back, we'll continue with this conversation. It's such a lovely afternoon. I know a lot of people in America saying good morning. With us, guys, it's afternoon. It's just 18 minutes before 5 p.m. So, yeah, that's what it is here. And make sure that we join us. Stick with us as we come back.
See, yeah, let me tell you, before you are chacharach, let me tell you.
Driving you into the future. Unleashing the sacred sounds of the motherland. Radio has never tasted this good. From this side of the hemisphere. Drive.
The hardest radio on this side of the hemisphere. 1873 FM.
To advertise with us, call our sales and marketing department on 011-5684-272. Terms and conditions apply.
On the 1803 FM, we are having conversation that matters. We have Fred, Courtney in the studio, and yeah, we into it. We're talking about the decade of people of African descent to say it's time for justice, it's time for equality, it's time that certain ladies start thinking before they're tweeting, or they start thinking before they're having speech or private meetings, whatever they want. It's time for us to have equal justice, that is. And going forward, what are other tools we can use to unite in teaching about this? You know, there are tools like radio, there are tools like music, there are tools like books, magazines, you know, podcasts, some of the things and clips. I was checking the Martin Luther King clip. I think he has more clips online than Donald Trump. That's very disturbing. Yet he has more constructive things to say.
Right, he has more positive things to say.
You know,
exactly.
But I don't think we podcast ourselves. I think that's one thing that Africa failed in terms of preserving history, because we were not keeping track of our own actions. Some people are claiming land, they don't even affidavit for it.
Right.
Or maybe landmark to say, you know, in our times we had these landmarks that represented us. You know, those are the things that we need to start doing. What else can we bring in table for us to educate and have this conversation in our circle? Because
that's it there, right? Because I think right now we at the bottom of the pile here. So we're digging out. But the way to continue it is for each one to teach one. Share this conversation. Have this conversation. Research the initiative. Research your history. And then talk about it. You know, spread it out there, because you'd be surprised. Even Black African, Black American, our network actually is very small. We're not 6 degrees of separation. We like 2 degrees. Because I know who you know. You know what I mean? But you don't know who I know. You know what I mean? So our networks are there. So if we could just use a simple network like that, like the last, what was it? The Arab Spring, Egyptian Spring, where everything went through WhatsApp, you know, and turned into a revolution that was enough to remove a president.
Is it Egypt or Tunisia?
Tunisia.
Yeah, in fact, they were celebrating 7 years recently. 7 years, 7 years of that event to say it's time.
And how did you do that? Just through the conversations, talking. You know what I mean? Sending SMSs and messages on.
But you know, a lot of these efforts, initiatives starts on the campuses of universities. I remember when I was starting to college, Kent State in Ohio. They were one of the first universities to step out front. So let me go there, man, because one of the things that Ipad4u is doing is trying to pull together a group of the historical Black colleges and universities in the States, partnering with what is sometimes referred to as the historically deprived institutions in South Africa, to the point that we sit together to look at the challenges, the things that needs to take place in light of education. Because one of the things that we have done, is that a lot of our institutions are teaching what they've always taught, and most of what they're teaching comes from the European or the West curriculum, if you follow what I'm saying. With technology now, there's nothing to prevent us from redesigning our own curriculum and incorporating the social media, you know, but we can also talk about distance conferencing and what have you, because there's a problem there, because so many of us speak different languages. You know, so when you go to America, you know, you're talking English. When you go to Brazil, parts of there, you're talking Portuguese. When you go to Cuba, you're talking Spanish. So I'm just saying, but there's technology that's coming on board fast that should reduce the challenges posed by speaking different languages. So there's a lot that we can do. We just need the will. And for me, I think that it should start with our colleges and universities developing curriculum that can be taught from K all of the way up, you know, in a way that we are leading and talking about our own history rather than teaching what someone else has written about our history and what we aspire to.
So you wanted to say from Cape to Cairo, Morocco, Madagascar, Senegal, Somalia, Philip to Australia.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
All around. Because we're everywhere. I mean, people of African descent. But you say that the first African that went to the Americas were slaves, but history says
they weren't the first.
History says that there were Africans in the U.S. Wasn't U.S. then, naturally. There was Africans on that continent long before the Europeans arrived.
Right, the traders were there. Yeah, that's for sure.
But we've been taught. Right. But see, and the other thing, when we talk about other places, let me get off the European for a while. You know, Africa historically has had a good trading relationship with China, you know, and now there's a lot of negative talk about that. But my opinion, I think it comes from something that I heard from Colin Powell when he was saying, when you hold another person in regard and that person does not hold you in the same regard, it's a mismatch. Now, the Chinese, for me, come closer to respecting Africans than the Europeans have historically, because at least they didn't colonize us, if you follow what I'm saying. So there's a lot of different ways to look at this thing, but ultimately, I say it starts with us, you know, creating the will, and this initiative is just one conduit of money. We can't undo 300-400 years in a decade. Just reality.
Yeah, that is so much real, because I don't think this can be undone.
Not undone, right? Or forgotten.
Of course.
Right.
Then get over it. It won't be. It won't happen. But then the lessons that have been drawn here, I'm looking into the tools that we need to use. We need the social media to break down the language barrier. We need our music to speak to us. You know, we've been kissing too much in music lately, and it's time that we go forth with good music. There is one of my favorite group, or is it the organization called Sing for Change? They will mix musicians of different culture from across the world, and one will sing one part in Texas, the other one will sing it in South Africa, other one in Madagascar. That tells you that people can communicate without even had to meet.
No, that's an excellent program, and it is proof that musicians can unite, and that's about 10 years old now, and they still going strong. They still,
those four old men, they're still part of it, and it's so interesting.
But no, for sure. But they say during slavery, during those times, the best way to cool the master off was to sing and dance for him. And a lot of slaves got past beatings and skinnings by being able to sing to the master. And I mean, it's just here today. On the slave ship, you want to get away from the whip, you should have some good pipes. So you say, well, that's how a lot of Africans made it through slavery out in the cotton fields. They would sing or moan and groan to get over the situation or make it through that particular predicament or situation that they were in.
So which one are those, according to Malcolm X? The in-house or the field one?
Definitely the field.
Definitely the field. Definitely the field worker, But music for me, I mean, really, that's one of the common things that I say that we have across all cultures.
And I think that's another tool we could use too. We get some of these kids, even here at 1873, to listen to us and come up with the song.
Yeah.
Okay.
Discussing and covering what we're discussing and stuff. So I think I'm gonna follow up on that. I think that's a good idea too.
Yeah.
I challenge. I mean, Courtney, Ipad4u challenge is really trying to build networks to get other people involved in the initiative, because there's only so much that we can do here in South Africa. So as we pull in, again, going back to the universities and colleges, so that's a ready built institution right there. So why couldn't it be that we here at 1873 create some content, whether it's a podcast or whether it's a filming that we would do that would just explain what the initiative is all about and pipe that across the internet, or be able to pass it on to the universities to say it's a compelling 15 minutes that every student, not just student, faculty, staff, the whole work need to be aware of, because it's kind of shameful to me that there isn't more happening on the continent with the initiative.
Of course.
Yeah. And there are some other places that are blazing a trail, but that's interesting too. That's a topic for another day.
Yeah, well, it's a part of this initiative is that every United Nations member state is supposedly to have a governmental level program to support this initiative. And so far, we're in our third year, and it's 3 countries?
In one region, they were saying representatives from Europe, Central Asia, and North Africa, they had their regional meeting on the 23rd and 24th November just passed. And that's what I'm wishing, Gamani, that we could do. Maybe we can move on, coordinate, even though they did theirs in Geneva. If we could manage to have ours here, since the whole thing started, when I say the whole thing, this IDPAD, the initiative, grew out of the Durban International Conference on Racism.
Okay.
So we could very well have a revisit of what transpired there, but make it this time be about the IDPAD initiative. That's a good idea, man.
Okay.
So, Mr. Priester?
Yeah, we are about to sum it up in 5 minutes time, right here on the 1803 FM. We're talking what needs to be done and how it needs to be done, and most importantly is who needs to be involved, and that is everyone. And your last word, Kidney, before we get to Fred, then we sum up, because my last words are one. You see me as nothing. If you see me as something else beside a human, you are not a human.
Okay. Well, I would continue to ask people to promote this initiative. Go to the website. It's under the United Nations initiative for the International Decade of People of African Descent. We'll definitely put the website on Facebook for you, so you can look it up after we finish here. And I think we're making progress here in our own small group. But we will continue to call on everybody for support. We're not asking for money yet. We're just asking for the conversation and for you to become awake, to know what's going on, and then to become lit, spread the news, help somebody else. And I think it'll all make a difference.
Yep, I agree totally. And what I'm looking for in sort of new emerging concepts, I'm looking for disruptive ideas. When I say disruptive ideas, they're not the run-of-the-mill ideas. They're one that breaks with traditional thinking. You know, how could we make this thing happen in a different way? Let me give you an example. Though it's not the disruptive that I'm thinking about right now, there's some disruption that's taking place in the automotive industry. We're moving from the gasoline to the electric engine to the hydrogen engine. So things are happening, and that's going to have a substantial impact on those people who traditionally thought that the only way to power a car was through the combustion engine. So when we talk about disruption, something that's out of the box, you know, not necessarily a quick fix, but something that you could see that if we were successful at doing it, would create a whole new thinking around people of African descent, but in addition, have an idea that would benefit not just people of African descent, but that would benefit the human race. Now, we might have a good chance if we can break with tradition and come with what I call disruptive ideas. Yeah.
Okay, we come to the end of the show. There's the 1833 FM.
Somebody sent that.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us through Facebook, WhatsApp. Facebook, that is. And thank you for joining us, and thank you so much for taking time and coming through. These are the two gentlemen. The next hour, I'll be talking to Eddie Mashaile about businessmen being kidnapped. It's becoming a new trend. Anyway, that's another story we're talking about. The two guys, the gentlemen, are like, what? Yeah, there is a new trend around when businessmen are fighting each other. So what they normally do is just kidnap someone, and yeah. So that is so much that it has received attention to the Interpol. So we're talking to someone from the Interpol today about that. So run, men, run. That's what it is.